Thank you. That was a short video from UNWTO. Now the Japanese version. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I think it stimulated our will or our want to travel even more. Well, next we bring you a segment with ministers and high-level representatives. Once we're all set, I will introduce the moderator of the section coming up. Okay. Well, it seems like it's going to take a little bit more, maybe a minute to prepare the set. Maybe I can tell you a little bit about this Kyoto International Conference Center. It was opened in 1966 as Japan's first national conference hall. You may recall back in 1992, it hosted COP3. And at that time, the Kyoto Protocol was declared. We know that currently the COP25 is taking place in Madrid. Now, this was also the site which hosted the 2003 World Water Forum, and I've been hearing that lots and lots of people came here to participate in this water forum. In 2015, APEX Finance Ministerial meeting was held. This International Conference Center is just north of central Kyoto. And right beside it is the Takaragaike, which is a nice lake, which is actually man-made. It was man-made probably back in the end of the 1800s, beginning of 1900s. We don't know for sure, but we've been hearing that this lake was made so that farmers will be blessed with water. So this is the era we are right now. There are lots of people taking part in the next segment, so it's taking a bit of a time to prepare. So I would appreciate your patience. We're almost ready. Okay, after this final check, we will call in the moderator for the segment coming up. Okay, it looks like it's all set now. We bring you a segment with ministers and high-level representatives next. And the moderator of this segment is Mr. Rajan Datar. He is a well-known face to many of you, perhaps, as host of BBC Travel, which is BBC's flagship TV program, which covers tourism and its many opportunities from destinations around the world. He is currently hosting a program called Ultimate Japan, and we would like to view that video. It's about 1 minute. May we have the video, please?
I'm Rajan Datar, and I'm traveling through Japan, going off the beaten track to find out what makes this country unique.
You give me happiness.
You. So, what have I learnt on my travels in search of the soul of Japan? Well, first and foremost, no matter how much technological change or urbanization or modernization, there'll always be a deep respect in this country for the forces of nature. That's what religion and tradition have always emphasized, and I don't see that changing soon. The other thing I've learned is that no matter what life throws at Japanese people, they're always going to be resilient. They will always bounce back.
So how did you like that video? It seems like he's having lots of fun. Well, I'd like to introduce Mr. Rajan Datar. Rajan? All yours.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I did have lots of fun. That was really, really great. It's about my 5th or 6th time in Japan. But what I really recognized, as I said at the end of that, was just the incredible love of nature. I think people get the wrong idea about Japan sometimes. I think they think it's all about Tokyo. But Japan, for me, is so rural. It's so in love with nature. And it's 9,000 islands or thousands of islands. It's a very, very special place. So I hope you can watch the program. It goes out this weekend. It's called Ultimate Japan. And I do go pretty well to an awful lot of places around here. So thank you for your hospitality there. So good morning, everyone. Are we happy? Yes, thank you. So as you can see, I am just a simple broadcaster and journalist who is lucky enough to travel the world. I meet fellow travelers, and I meet the local host communities in destinations, and I know exactly what excites them, what intrigues them. I'm talking about both the tourists and the hosts, and it's culture. Sharing of culture is perhaps the #1 priority, I would say. Cultural tourism is a destination's calling card. It's unique DNA. It's a message which says, I'm here, come and see me. There's a reason for that. And may I first say that I have been to Japan on many occasions, from Hokkaido in the north to the big cities like Tokyo and Osaka, and to the rural areas, as I mentioned, where there are traditional ways of living. But this is my first time to this cultural hub, Kyoto. So can I please thank our hosts for inviting me and the other people from the UNWTO here. Kyoto, as a lot of you know, is really the heart of real Japanese heritage and culture. You've got 2 palaces here, 2 castles, 1,600 Buddhist temples, 400 Shinto shrines. I think you've got 15 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and you have a Kyoto International Manga Museum. And I think that's important because for me, yes, culture is about history, it's about heritage and tradition, but it's also about everyday social interaction. People meeting people in a bar, in the street, on public transport. I always think public transport is a really good way to get to know the culture of a city or a town. You can meet them in a shop, in a local football game. And increasingly, for tourists today, it's not about being a passive onlooker, an observer, just traipsing around a museum or in a crowded one of that or a monument. It's about experience. It's about transformation of yourself by immersing yourself in a strange and unique situation and culture. It's about, as has been mentioned, participating. So cultural tourism is about gathering new stimuli, new information and experiences, and reminding us of shared humanity. It can also be about traveling thousands of miles to find somebody fascinating that you would ignore if they lived next door to you. Now think about that. Because there's something about travel that makes you more eager, more ready for dialogue and for communication. And I think that we should always bear in mind the state of mind of the traveler. They are ready for new experiences. Now, I'll just quickly run you through some random experiences that I've had when I've shared local culture. I've played in a klezmer band in Poland, in Krakow. I've learnt how to cook in Hiroshima, in Japan. I've wrestled with Mongolian wrestlers at their traditional games. I've sung with a 25-piece male polyphonic choir in the hills in the Caucasus in Georgia. I've carried the portable shrine at a Matsuri festival. I played with a band in New Orleans. That was fantastic fun. The list goes on. I'm very lucky, but I don't see why not. Why people generally cannot share these kinds of experiences. To me, that is culture sharing. That is what the future is, and we're talking about future generations at this conference. And it's also what makes a destination unique, and its people different. So we're not talking about homogenized, standardized, and yes, globalized things that you can get anywhere in the world. You're talking about the USP of a destination, what makes it special. And local communities want a stake in that exchange, to decide the agenda themselves, and to basically decide what's on offer to tourists, and to make a living. So, in that spirit, this session will bring together ministers and high-level representatives of tourism and culture from across the world to discuss and exchange policies and models for the future of cultural tourism. In this session, ministers and high-level representatives will highlight the different approaches their governments are taking to safeguard and promote cultural expressions and support the development of new and sustainable tourism. In response to the growing convergence between tourism and culture and the relevance of local communities in the tourism sector, the session serves as a platform to share experiences and lessons learned. So, can I please then welcome on stage, and forgive me, there are 8 different languages here, so if my pronunciation isn't totally on, then sorry about that. But please, come onto the stage, and in order, can I have His Excellency, Mr. Thich Chantha, Secretary of State, Ministry of Tourism of Cambodia, Mr. Frano Matusic, Secretary of State, Ministry of Tourism, Croatia, if you'd like to come to the far side, His Excellency, Mr. George or Jiří Vzientek, Deputy Minister, Ministry of Culture, the Czech Republic, His Excellency, Dr. Ziblim Idi, Deputy Minister, Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture from Ghana, Ms. Yolo Dionos Sopoulou, Director General, Tourism Policy in Greece, His Excellency, Mr. Alhaji Lai Mohammed, the Minister from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture of Nigeria, Mr. Alpha Amadou Silla, Deputy Minister, Ministry of Tourism and Handicraft Industry from the Republic of Guinea, and from Japan, our hosts, His Excellency Mr. Hirofumi Kado, Parliamentary Vice Minister, Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism, and Her Excellency Ms. Michiko Ueno, State Minister, Ministry of Education, Culture, Sport, Science and Technology. Phew! So that's everyone. Let's get them all on stage. Can you please give them a big welcome? Thank you. So to open, I thought just to make things kind of easy for everyone to understand, I want to go round this circle, semicircle, and ask people from their own experience, from their own country, to give an example of best practice where culture and tourism work together and the local community benefits. So to do that, can I perhaps start on the far side with the Minister from Cambodia, please? If you can give an example of that, best practice.
Thank you, and good morning, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. I think the start for the introduction of the tourism and the culture. As we all aware that the tourism and cultures has the special interrelationship of these two sectors has always been together and support each other, especially in the globalization and the era of the development and management. And Cambodia cases, as we always recognize tourism and cultures very important in the socio-economic development, conservation, protection. Tourism plays a role in promoting of the conservation, protection of the cultural heritage, and cultural heritage as the backbone of tourism product and promote millions of visitors visiting the country every year. We see many cases have been successful implementations in the country, especially we promote the what's so-called the cultural tourism destination. As you aware, Cambodia is for example, Angkor is one of the great successful cases of the tourism, cultural tourism development, and also the management of the cultural heritage. There we have about nearly 5 million visitor years visiting this cultural heritage, and about $1 billion the income inject into this destination, just a small destination, but a huge economic impact for that. And besides this, tourism can play support to the conservation and protection of the cultural heritage in that area. We've seen that the tourism has been a role of this promoting this destination, and the community people, especially, the benefit from this cultural destination. And also cultural and tourism has played a role to educate not only the local population, but also the visitor who visit the destination to learn and share all the best practices and experience in terms of the management, development, and also the respectful to the cultural destination. Thank you.
Thank you. And I should say that Cambodia was the host of the first of these conferences. That's right, isn't it?
Yep.
4 years ago?
Yep.
Very good. I'm going to talk to you a bit later on about the dangers of over-tourism, because obviously you have Angkor Wat in Cambodia, and it'd be good to talk about how you can manage to spread tourism across the country. We'll come back to that. So, to Croatia, and an example, please, of good practice.
Thank you very much. First of all, allow me to extend my gratitude to our hosts, Japanese government and city of Kyoto, for hosting this very important event, fourth meeting of culture and tourism, UNESCO and UNWTO. And I have to say very briefly a few facts about Croatia, just to know what I'm speaking about. Croatia is a relatively small country with only 4.2 million inhabitants, citizens, and we recorded last year a record number of visitors, of tourists, more than 20 millions. And this year we even overcome these results at the end of October. So on 25th of October we overcome these figures. And I have to say that tourism is main driver for Croatian economy and contributing with almost 20% of GDP. So you can see how important is tourism for Croatia. And now you asked me about good examples where tourism and culture are working together. I will give you one excellent example. I think that all of you know about the city of Dubrovnik, for example. City of Dubrovnik is under UNESCO's protection for many years. This year we celebrated 40th anniversary of protection of the UNESCO of the city of Dubrovnik. And unfortunately, during the war at the end of 90s in Croatia, the city of Dubrovnik was hardly damaged. And due to the fact that many tourists are visiting Croatia after the war, and due to the fact that last year we recorded more than 3 million visitors, tourists coming to Dubrovnik, which has only 40,000 inhabitants, that helped to restore the city, especially city walls and all the buildings in the old city, which is protected by UNESCO. And I can tell you that working together, culture and tourism will help to have enough money for restoration, for constant restoration, constant renovation of the cultural heritage. And Dubrovnik is a really excellent example. Last year we organized, together with UNESCO, an exhibition which showed images from the war and after the war and restoration of the monuments in Dubrovnik. And Dubrovnik is a symbol, of course, of Croatia and a symbol of Croatian heritage, and Dubrovnik is a pearl of Adriatic together with Venice. And I think that once you see the image of Dubrovnik, you immediately think about Croatia. So this is, I think, very good practice, although we have many good practices in Croatia. Cultural tourism is one of 10 main products of tourism sector, and our strategy is focused and based on cultural tourism. Of course, cultural tourism is bringing not only visitors, but they're bringing also investors to Croatia, and I think this is an excellent way. But we have to think and to bear in mind always the development of tourism should be always sustainable. We are now preparing new national strategy for the next period until 2030, and tourism and cultural tourism especially has a very important pillar in that strategy, and I hope that thinking on sustainable way, in sustainable development, we have to bear this always in mind, and to somehow to secure that our heritage will be enough preserved for the future generations.
Can I just interrupt you and just say that when it comes to Dubrovnik, and we have the similar issue of what they call over-tourism, how much does the local community have a say in what goes on with the development of the city?
Fortunately, this is behind us, because we had this situation with over-tourism 3 and 4 years ago, but current government of the city mayor and his team, they delivered new action plan on over-tourism, and together with all stakeholders and with the citizens, and they somehow they create new environment in the city, and they already they succeed in reducing these peaks in the season, and this situation when you can see so many people on the gates of Dubrovnik is not anymore present today in Dubrovnik during the summer season especially, because they have excellent conversation, excellent work to do, also still doing with the CLIA, which is main company for cruise companies. And this association is ready to work together with all municipalities and with Dubrovnik especially. And I think this is something what we have to do permanently. And of course, locals were not satisfied with that situation a few years ago, but now they are really satisfied with the action plan and what they succeed in the meantime. And the situation is now much better. And even Dubrovnik is mentioned today as a good example, good practice. How can you manage the tourist flow? It's not question of numbers. It's more question, how do you manage this tourist flow? How can you manage this? How can you redirect tourists to other remote destinations or close destinations in a rural area, and to bring them to these destinations and to offer them new products which are in the neighborhood.
Thank you. And we'll come back to seasonality as well, which I think is another big issue that affects Croatia. So to the Czech Republic, and similarly, you have, George, you have Prague, which is also a big honeypot for tourists. But I want to perhaps give an example, maybe from somewhere else, where you have that partnership of local communities and the public sector, but also making sure that tourism and culture in particular shine through.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have an example, not only from Czech Republic, but I would like to highlight a UNESCO program and platform, World Heritage Journey in Europe. I think that it's a very important thing. In 2017, our two sites, garden and castle of Kroměříž and Lednice, Valtice cultural landscape inscribed of UNESCO, were invited to join this project. Along with 35 other sites in Europe, both sites have formed the basis for the network of UNESCO sites to attract the attention of visitors from out of Europe destinations and motivate them to travel in Europe individually, to learn about the roots of our culture in compliance with suitable development. Both sides decided to take this opportunity to focus on the destination and offer the UNESCO values and brand in broader sense. The main barrier of the project is the National Geographic Society, which creates an unparalleled background for this project's takeoff. I think that it's very important, and I think that it's very good things.
Thank you very much. And to turn to the Deputy Minister from Ghana, a wonderful country that I've never been to.
Yeah.
So any invitation, let's talk afterwards. That'd be fantastic. But tell me, what is a good example for you of good practice?
Thank you so much. First of all, let me congratulate the city of Kyoto for such a wonderful hospitality. And of course, thank the UNWTO and UNESCO for inviting us to participate in this conference. I think for us in Ghana, culture is actually the driving force of tourism. Ghana is blessed to have a huge comparative advantage when it comes to heritage sites. And we really develop and capitalize on it in promoting tourism. But most also, we have so much in terms of our festivals. Ghana is so rich in traditional festivals, historical festivals. And so to promote tourism, we package these festivals and promote these heritage sites, as the driving force of tourism. This year, for example, Ghana is recording for the first time the highest, number of inbound tourists coming into the country because of what the president declared last year. Ghana this year celebrated what we call 400 years of the slavery, the year of return. And this has brought back to Ghana African people of African descent from all across the world, especially from the United States, the Caribbean, and Latin America, all coming to really, on a pilgrimage to get touch with their, spiritual ancestors as they come through the experience of their forefathers when they left the shores of Ghana to the newfound land. And so the Ministry of Tourism has capitalized on this year of return, and we have developed these heritage sites to really give them the pilgrimage experience, take them through the experience of, the last slaves as they were leaving Africa and what they went through. And it's really a very touching, experience. And this has actually, centered the local communities and the local economy into tourism because the slaves had to experience so many local activities in terms of the last bath, in terms of the last journey, to the dungeons and all of that. And so when these tourists come through, we get the local people involved and they take them through the experiences of, the last slaves. And this actually injects so much into the local economy. On the part of festivals, what we do at the ministry is beginning to repackage our historical festivals to be more attractive and really centering the youth, getting the artistic ingenuity of the youth to mainstream, the festival, so they don't just look traditional in nature, but they become more attractive. And especially so enticing, to the young as they come, from all across the world. We have the Charlotte Festival, the Afrochella, and so these are the areas that we use to really promote culture and let culture drive tourism. We are not big in ecotourism and resort tourism, but culture is really the foundation of our tourism in Ghana.
Culture is your calling card. Very interesting. And also the fact that young people are involved is very good, because also I know that reggae and hip-hop are huge in Ghana, aren't they?
So huge, so huge. As a matter of fact, because of the year of return, we're getting all the international reggae stars. I think Third World were in Ghana, and they performed real clearly, and they attracted so many people from all across the world. As a matter of fact, December is supposed to be our peak month, and all the hotels in Ghana are booked, all because people want to come first to get in touch with their ancestors, but most importantly, to get a feel of the African culture, and this is so important for us.
Thank you. Let's turn to Greece, and I think a lot of people would equate Greece with culture, basically. That's what your history has been all about, but perhaps you can give me an example, Yola, of good practice where the local community has got a big stake in what happens in promoting culture through tourism.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to participate in this excellent event and to be here in this wonderful city, Kyoto. The Greek wealth of cultural resources, a world-class cultural tourism brand linked to optimal strategic planning for our minister, the Ministry of Tourism of Greece, in cooperation with the Ministry of Culture, supports a variety of cultural routes with a view to developing unique experiences of cultural tourism at transnational and national level. In particular, to give an indicative example, the routes of olive tree are itineraries of intercultural dialogue and sustainable development, cultural events and various activities focusing on the Mediterranean of the olive tree. So for these reasons, on March 2018, the routes of the olive tree was selected by the majority of the EU member states to be one of the Adriatic-Ionian routes to be funded by the Routes for You program, a joint program between the European Commission and the Council of Europe. In addition, the Ministry of Tourism is an active member of the UNWTO Silk Road Initiative. The Silk Road offers visitors the opportunity to experience a unique network of cultural heritage destinations, and more specifically, the Ministry of Tourism participated in the first UNWTO Silk Road Capacity Building Program, organized the first international UNWTO Western Silk Road workshop, in Alexandroupolis in Greece, as well as the 8th UNWTO International Meeting on the Silk Road in Thessaloniki on 2018 under the topic Silk Road for Tourism Growth and Destination Resilience. Moreover, in the last meeting of the Joint Working Group on Tourism and Culture of the BISEC organization, the Ministry of Tourism submitted a project proposal in cooperation with the Ministry of Tourism of the Republic of Bulgaria, the UNWTO Technical Cooperation and Silk Road Department, and the International Center of Wine and Gastronomy of the Russian Federation under the title about the capitalizing on the potential of the Silk Road. Thank you.
And I need to follow that up. Just again, how much is the local community benefiting from these kinds of initiatives?
In our strategic planning, the awareness and the participation of local community in the regional level is essential. So among our priorities is to have a committee from all the regionals in Greece in order to have an input from our actions, from their actions, and to implement our policy in the national level. So the awareness and the participation is very active and vivid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's turn to Guinea and the Deputy Minister there. Now, Guinea is a country that's known for nature. It's known for its amazing scenery. You've got a very young population, I know that much. What about culture? Can you give me an example where culture and tourism are meeting to the benefit of the local community?
Bien, je vous remercie. C'est un plaisir pour moi de me retrouver.
Well, Conakry is the country in Western Africa that is located, and the features are 4 natural areas: topology, landscape, and language, and buildings. So Guinea is divided into 4. Many kinds of animals are living, and tourism destinations are abundant. But regarding the tourism, we are newcomer. So we have to haven't displayed the potential. We do have the potential, but it's not fully utilized yet.
Mondial du tourisme et l'UNESCO.
Yeah.
De créer cette synergie pour que cette
これ間違ってないよね。間違ってないよね。でも藤本さんの時は入れたんでしょ？入ってたんだよね。やってたから。Now, the historical cultural heritage we have to transmit our information to other countries. And Afro-American culture and South Carolina, there are many people live there. And through UNESCO, contacted us. And many Guinean people are involved in the culture and try to find out the origin of our people, and that is the program of the pilgrimage. And the chimpanzees from the south, and also there are some in the west. So there are so many chimpanzees. So chimpanzees are very close to human being. Their customs are very similar to the Japanese, the human customs. They fish and they eat seaweeds. And in West Guinea, the chimpanzee approaches to human being. They come down to our community, and that's a very unique characteristics, and we have to further develop them. But we have to spend more, and we have to invest more to find out the possibilities. And the local community and the people from the community will enjoy the advantages and the merit from those activities, and protection of the cultural heritage, and that to be used for the further development of the tourism. And that is my idea. We'll
come to that later. Thank you. Let's turn to Nigeria and the whole issue there, because Nigeria obviously is hugely rich of ethnic culture, history, amazing literature, amazing music, but again, perhaps not fully realized in terms of marrying tourism with culture and involving the local community. So I wonder if you could give me an example of good practice, best practice there.
Thank you very much. May I join my colleagues in congratulating the government of Japan and city of Kyoto in particular for this very wonderful conference and the hospitality we've enjoyed in the last 2 days. I think the issue of how do the local communities benefit from cultural tourism, it's as old as tourism itself. A while ago, the city of Berlin noticed that despite the thousands of visitors that came to Berlin, that the money spent by tourists was actually dissipated all over the country. And as such, there was nothing for the people of Berlin to show for their troubles. All they did was clean up the mess after the tourists left, while other states in Germany actually enjoyed the benefit of tourism. So what Berlin did then was to introduce what is called Berlin notes. Berlin notes were actually a form of exchange. Tourists were encouraged to change their dollars into Berlin notes, which they could spend in discotheques, they could spend in stadia, they could spend in pubs, they could spend, spend in, I think, museums. And the whole idea of these Berlin notes was that when you spend a Berlin note, you get a 10% discount. And the beauty of it was that Berlin notes were not legal tender outside Berlin. So tourists that came to Berlin had to spend their money in Berlin, and the money was retained in Berlin. And when they left, of course, they could change their Berlin notes back into dollars or whatever currency they came, they came with. So this was the way that Berlin was able to ensure that the money spent by tourists in Berlin stayed in Berlin and benefited the people of Berlin. Now, how does this apply to Nigeria? And what are we doing about it? We realize in Nigeria that money made by tourists, made from tourists, actually hardly ever stay in the hands of those who are responsible for the enjoyment of tourism by the tourists. What do I mean? Most of our museums are actually concentrated in cities. But the products, the artifacts, the monuments are actually products of the countryside. But when the tourists come, they stay in Lagos, they stay in Abuja, they stay in Kano. And it is the economy of Lagos, Abuja, and Kano that actually benefit from the tourist spending. So what the government did was to try and shift the focus. And this time around, we encourage palace and community museums so that tourists can go to the nooks and corners of Nigeria and actually savor the monuments, savor the artifacts, savor our cuisine, savor our cultural tourism. And the money spent there remains in the community. This is how we are trying to balance, and ensure that the money that is spent by tourists actually is retained in the community where the tourism objects actually come from. Because if you notice that over time, the laws that were made was such that divested the ownership of most of the monuments and the artifacts and cultural objects from the real owners. And this led to a kind of disconnect between the community and government. Because in Africa, and in Nigeria especially, objects are not just, what you see them to be. Objects are actually connected to the people, to the way they live, to their past. It's not relevant whether you believe it or not. But in Nigeria and in most African countries, we believe certain objects actually possess, certain powers and attributes. For instance, we believe that the god of thunder that he used to spit fire, and that the Osun River actually was a woman that was turned into a river. Now, if there's no collaboration between the state government and the local people, then there will be that connect will be lost. So what we do in Nigeria is that we are encouraging palaces and the residences of important chiefs to also have their own museums and get people invited there. And already we have the Lamido Fadamawa has already the Fombewa Palace and also the ML Portisco. I think another good example is the one in Mali. Sometimes in 1999, the people of Domori in Mali, they were worried and concerned that they might lose their very precious artifacts and cultural heritage to trafficking and to looters. So this suggested the construction of a traditional museum where they can keep these artifacts. Now, they were lucky because they got the support and grant, I think, from Germany, and they were able to put their very precious and artifacts in a traditional local museum. However, the good thing about this museum is that it's also encouraged, families, individuals, and even clans also to bring their own objects to keep, in this museum. And this synergy between the government and the people has been the driving force in keeping this museum alive. So what we try to borrow these examples and try to get the local people involved, not just in getting tourism there, but also even in the planning, evaluation, and monitoring of the cultural tourism. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll come back to some of those issues again. Let's turn to our hosts now. And there are 5 main themes that we want to cover here. And I suppose the first one is really, how do you promote culture through tourism? So in terms of the kind of official question, what kind of policy and governance models can best contribute to return benefits of tourism into cultural resources? And we have obviously 2 different ministries here from Japan, but perhaps I can turn to the parliamentary vice minister first, from the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism, to answer that point first.
Thank you very much. Yes, for Japan, the tourism is a very important pillar for developing industries. Particularly, this will energize the remote areas of Japan. And having said that, well, after the great economic growth, Japan is now see the inbound booming in a way. I think in Japan, as compared to your country, we are latecomers in starting to deal with this issue. 10 years ago, well, the number of overseas visitors are less than 10 million. For long, it was like that. However, the relaxation and the visa issuance and some of the effort had made us to arrive at the 30 million visitors annually in Japan. And we'd like to increase to 40 million in 2030. 60 million is a target number of inbound tourists from overseas now. So like you, well, the tourism will be a main pillar, one of the main pillar of the industry of Japan. So still we are in a kind of a startup stage, I think, especially for the culture and nature that we are talking about today. What kinds of things the target of interest from overseas visitors? And as a content, what kind of content we are able to provide to the overseas visitors? We are now in a trial and error stage. But you are here in Kyoto. It has more than 1,000 years of history on the background. So the streets and landscapes are very much protected by Kyoto people. And this is highly appreciated by overseas visitors. I think Kyoto could be one of the example, the model that we can learn from. And towards the nook and hook of every corner of Japan, we would like to make the country as a good resource for tourism. In terms of a cultural property, yes, we have been safeguarding the cultural property as a sort of a resource for the culture. However, when it comes to the tourist resource, especially the content to be appreciated by overseas tourists, well, so far we have not been working very hard on this aspect. So from last year, we secured a resource, the tax for the tourists are coming from abroad. So when they leave Japan, and also when Japanese leave Japan, we levy a certain percentage of the tax for kind of a tourism tax. And we are international tourist tax. So that could be one of the source for the promoting that policy. As I said, we are still in the developing stage still. So I hope that your advanced effort we can learn from, and there would be more people interchanging each other, which will bring the peace in the world. And I think the tourism is one of the tools to means to achieve that. Thank you.
Japan has opened up to tourism massively. It's been a big change, even since I first started coming here. And that takes me to our second speaker from Japan, who represents the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sport, Science and Technology. Now, sport, we've all seen the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, and what a difference that made. The Olympics comes here, or to Japan, next year. Sport is a big thing. But tell me, Minister, what, in terms of good models, are you using in order to promote culture through tourism?
はい、ありがとうございます。今、司会
Thank you very much. Raja-san, the moderator, has introduced me. My work in charge is in culture, education, sports, science, technology. So versatile. And as he's mentioned, the World Cup rugby was held in Japan. I've been to the stadium myself many times, and I was so impressed. And I think that rugby has gave a kind of a moving experience towards the audience of the world. And it's more than 1 month. So when the day there is no rugby match game, I think the visitors are going over to many cities of Japan to spend the time sightseeing while the game is not played. Well, in London as well, after the London Olympic, the many visitors visited the city of London. That we learn from very much. And for the Olympic and Paralympic in 2020, we would like to do the same for encouraging tourism through that sports events. So there are many visitors, not just for the sports, but also the culture. So in a way, I think a Japanese exposition is starting now. So turning to the original point, in order to merge the culture and tourism, we need a resource as well as the legal system and also some kinds of environmental setup to protect the rural area. Well, in Japan, gradually, we are starting new things, as has been mentioned by the Emerit Minister. We have international tourist tax, which has been initiated. Well, a cultural agency is a sort of a poor agency, don't have a kind of a financial resource. So having this tax resource, we would like to set up a system for the inbound tourists and also the Japanese tourists going overseas as well. And also from the Emerit and the tourism agency, we'd like to cooperate with them in town creation in local area in terms of culture. The local museums, there should be some other means to set up the stage for promoting culture. So legal system should be starting before the Olympic and Paralympic in 2020. That legal system will be ready. For Japanese exhibition or exposition, we have been transmitting quite a number of information, and 340 official project has been agreed upon, approved, and that includes the traditional, as Her Imperial Highness has just mentioned, the kabuki, bunraku, Japanese dance. Those cultures must be transmitted, as Representative Garner mentioned. The traditional festival in the locality should be promoted so that the visitor can experience there. So the tourist spot of not just watching but experiencing. So as well as sports, well, I've been to London sometimes, and I have heard from the tourist agency in London, in UK from the past, the sports and the local culture and the local university has been three main pillars to create a township.
But also Japan, we started late, but again, sports and culture and college students' strength should be borrowed. So in new form, we would like to develop the town building or the culture tourism.
What really occurs to me, and it applies to all of you, is that in order for everybody to have a stake, all the local people to have a stake, all the communities to have a stake in tourism and culture, you need infrastructure. you need education, you need training, you need all those things, you need technology, you need to make sure that the whole country is connected. I wonder if I could just turn to a few of you and ask you what work is being done in order to make sure that everything is interconnected in the country and people aren't being left out of tourism and culture as a result of that. Perhaps if I can go to Ghana first and ask you that question. How much of an effort are you making to make sure that the have-nots, if you like, the people on the outside, are also benefiting?
Thank you so much. I think it's a very good question. For us, the whole idea about using culture to promote tourism is to really empower the youth, to create opportunities for jobs and for growth, especially in the economies that the youth, worked on. And so what we do is, as we repackage the old historical festivals, create new festival products. And this brings in the ingenuity of the youth. And so you have to use, smart, data, big data, use really the internet to promote Ghana's unique cultural cuisines and artifacts and all of that. And to get people to come from outside of Ghana, the youth, as you know, are very good in going online, using social media, working on big data. And so we really try to find a synergy between using technology to develop new festival products and center youth activities in those things. And it's really helping a lot, especially music, with our cuisine, with fashion, and models. And so you can sit in, New York or Tokyo or anywhere in the world, and you are connected to what the youth in Ghana are doing in these areas. And this is really, helping a lot, to really mainstream tourism, culture into tourism, focusing on the role that the youth can play in that.
I think Ghana actually is quite advanced in lots of ways in terms of education and in terms of, obviously, it's a mature country. There are resources available, so I think it works in that way. In terms of education for local people in how to deal with tourism, how strong is that, do you think?
Yeah, so what you find, especially with cultural heritage sites, these are in really rural areas. So government is trying to take technology into these areas by really expanding on, the fiber network and getting these rural areas connected, to the cities. And so when tourists visit, they can have, the field of the people. And to do that, you really have to educate the people and provide infrastructure for them to really not just get formal education, but have the tools that they can use to work in developing the festivals that we try to promote.
I mean, with the festivals, tourists will come to the festivals, they'll meet a local person, they'll stay with local people maybe to enjoy the festival?
Yeah, so we use the traditional chiefs actually to really, portray the African, unique cultural dressing and practices and all of that. And so even though, yes, you are really focusing on the tourists, but you are also trying to get the youth to buy into this ancient, traditional way of life in Africa, and to get the two really connected. And you use that to excite the foreigner, to excite the tourists. So when they come, they get excited, but also you are also really getting the youth to continue with this, traditional practices.
Thank you. And let me just turn to your neighbour. In terms of the Czech Republic, how much are people outside the big cities? How much are they interconnected? How much good infrastructure is there? How much good education is there for them to actually sell the country, to be part of the tourist package?
I think that the infrastructure is important, but I think that the essential for a good development of tourist and cultural is partnership between sector, between people. I think that the complexity of both the tourism and cultural sectors implies that platforms must be created to support collaboration, and mechanisms must be found to ensure that these two sectors can communicate effectively. Local communities are beginning to come together to develop cultural products for tourism rather than competing directly with one another. New policies are likely to feature new structures and projects involving public-private partnership and bringing together a wider range of stakeholders to use culture not only to make destination attractive for visitors, but also to promote regions as destination to live, work and invest in.
So that's partnerships between public and private sector. You think that is the key there. I'm also interested in partnerships between a country and its neighbors, by the way. And I think, let's just turn to Croatia. How much are you working with your neighbors like Bosnia, like Serbia, in terms, and I've been down the river Sava, by the way, which connects all the countries, and there is a kind of linking narrative that you could do if you worked in collaboration with them. Is that something that you're thinking about?
Yeah, of course. Croatia is in a very specific position when we are speaking geopolitically, because we are part of the European Union, and some of our neighbors are also part of the European Union, like Slovenia, Hungary, Italy. And at the same time, you have our neighbors who are not, who are trying to become in the next future members of the European Union, like Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, Montenegro. And I think that one very important tool, one very important mean for our trans-border cooperation, transnational cooperation, are European cultural roots. So culture is core of the business of European cultural roots, and currently we have 11 cultural routes passing through Croatia, and of course we are also in the neighboring countries. And this is an excellent opportunity to connect all entrepreneurs, all the local communities, to join their forces in promoting values on these cultural routes. For example, we have a Roman Emperor's cultural route, Iter Vitis, which is wine culture. In fact, which is, we are very, very happy that we are on that route, of course, together with all the countries. And there are Phoenicians and so on, so 11 of them are passing. But we are now creating 2 new routes. One of them is Nikola Tesla legacy, the biggest inventors, I think, of the 20th century, who was born in Croatia. For those who don't know that, in one very small village near Gospić, in the rural area of Croatian continental part, in Lika, region of Lika. And the other are broader Roman heritage. That's also something what we try to create together with the other countries, because the main rule, if you want to establish a cultural route, is to have at least 3 partners from countries who are members of the European Council. So you know that European Council is a broader institution than European Union. I think there are 48 countries in the European Council. And of course, this cooperation is very important, and especially important for locals. And if we are speaking about education, we targeted education and of course, new specific products, local products, in our action plan for cultural tourism as main objectives, key strategical objectives. So we have to develop, we have to deliver better education. Of course, if you want to do something in tourism in rural areas, you have to know languages, you have to have better infrastructure, of course. We are not speaking only about roads, but about the whole infrastructure. You have to have some specific products which are connected with that with the tradition in that areas and so on. So I think it's very important. Croatia has excellent education when we are speaking about primary schools. So all pupils have to learn, first of all, English, and then by preferences they are learning second languages like German, Italian, Spanish, French, Chinese language, or Russian, and so variety of languages. And I think that's very important to know at least 2 languages and to be able to communicate with the visitors. And that's something what we have to think advance when we are speaking about connecting tourism and culture. And of course, we need skilled workers in tourism sector. That's the main challenge, I can say, in Croatia, because we have to import many workers from neighboring countries, but also from very far distant countries, like, for example, workers from Nepal are coming to Croatia. You can imagine. So and not only from Nepal, but we have also from our neighboring countries, from Bosnia and Herzegovina, from Serbia, Montenegro, and the others, from Ukraine, and so on. So we have many challenges, I have to say, but I think still that tourism and culture goes hand in hand, and that's something that we have to support, encourage, because culture is a part of our identity. I think all of our countries are proud of their culture and their tradition, but some types of culture, let's say types, are common for many countries. You know, so these European cultural roots, in fact, connects all countries with the same values. Yeah.
Let's turn to Nigeria and back to my question of how well connected the whole country is, people in rural areas. How much are they able to take part in spreading culture through tourism?
Thank you very much. As you know, Nigeria is a nation of about 200 million people with various, hundreds of, ethnic groups and, languages. But what the government has done to promote and protect cultural tourism is that the government supports and promotes festivals and cultural tourism all over the country. For instance, we have the Abuja Carnival. The Abuja Carnival is organized yearly. It's supposed to be a melting point of all cultures in Nigeria. And many states also have replicated the same thing. For instance, we have the Calabar Carnival, which has become a global product. We also have the Fanti culture, which is a crossbreed of the Brazilian culture and the Yoruba people. And then we also have in the Osun group, which I explained earlier on. Because in Nigeria, there's a very strong interaction between the beliefs of the people and their culture. Now, the key to sustaining cultural tourism and ensuring that no part of the country is left behind, I think, is participation. You must involve the local community in planning any festival and in planning any cultural activity. But on the part of government, what we've done is to provide that enabling environment to encourage each part of the country to promote and preserve its heritage. For instance, while we do not interfere directly with the way the locals, prepare their festivals, we ensure that government representation is very high to encourage and promote them. We've also put in place certain incentives that will encourage, cultural tourism in Nigeria. While we understand the diversity of the country, and we also understand the deficit in infrastructure, we've, however, decided to leverage on those areas where we have competitive advantage, especially in the areas of music, in the area of films, in the area of theater. And as we speak today, there are at least about 4 or 5 concerts going on in the country. And no part of the country is left behind. And the beauty, I think, of being a federal constitution is that each state is allowed to grow at its own pace. But what we do as a government is ensure that we provide enough support for all these festivals. And there's actually no time in Nigeria that there's no one festival going on or the other. And at our level, we've also compiled a calendar of festivals so that it can help tourists coming into the country to know exactly which festival is going to be holding in what place of the year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's just look at how technology can help in terms of promoting culture and tourism, and turn back to Japan and to Minister Ueno. How do you see it? How do you see technologies assisting policymakers to tackle the main challenges, such as, yes, how can you see, but let me rephrase the question. How can you see new technologies transforming policy making and strategic developments?
Thank you very much for the difficult question to answer. And I prepare the talk about education. So I would like to combine the two, so science and technology as well as education. I would like to touch upon. Now there are so many tourists from abroad, and at the airports there are many technologies already implemented, and tourism content they transmitted from those applis. And maybe you arrived in Kansai Airport, and that's international, and also Haneda Airport, international airport in Tokyo. And there are the bridge created, and you can go over the bridge, so you can experience the traditional bridge. And her Imperial Highness, the Akiko, said the authentic, the real one to be implemented. But unfortunately, this is fake, but still important. And also the education and the kabuki. Some the local areas, they don't have much experience in viewing kabuki, so they cannot touch the real thing, but we try to transmit information via internet or virtual reality. And also the remote education be provided, and ESD education promoted by UNESCO is also highlighted, and we try to support those activities. The real authentic culture the children should touch upon. But this is still rather difficult. So first they know through ESD, and they also learn about the Japanese culture with images and videos. And within their own villages and communities, there are the inherent indigenous culture. So they have to learn about those. For example, the sweets, the Japanese traditional sweets were created, cooked by the young children. So they became to love the Japanese the food, especially sweets. And by learning ESD and through SDGs, what is necessary, they can learn. So they can learn about the challenges and the problems. Because the future of the country be constructed by the people, especially children. So the children is important. We have the children ambassadors in local community. They are the child delegates, and they try to transmit information to the world.
To Greece now, obviously, I said that in Athens and Thessaloniki and other places, culture is very rich. What about the islands, where it's traditionally been sun, sea, sand? You just enjoy yourself. How much, in terms of tourism, is culture being promoted in all the different islands in Greece?
Thank you for your very interesting question. but Greece has culture everywhere, in inland, in mainland, and in islands. So the tourism policy, from its nature, affects and is affected from every distinct state policy. You could see the policy of education, the policy of environment, the policy of infrastructure. In Greece, digitalization opens up immense opportunities for tourism and cultural organizations and relevant public authorities to seize the opportunity of big data to collect and analyze data in real time, and to collect this data for the destination management. So to implement and operate phenomena like over-tourism, for example, Santorini. And because of this, we've already had research about this with the cooperation of European Bank of Reconstruction, BRD, in order to see the effects and to promote not only the well-known destinations, because this is a phenomenon not only for Greece, but everywhere, maybe. For us and the Ministry of Tourism, we foster international cooperation and joint tourism governance of collaborative project initiatives for the creation and marketing of transnational inland and maritime cultural tourism routes, to have a very close cooperation with the Ministry of Digital Governance in order to make the digital transformation of all services provided by the Ministry of Tourism to citizens, businesses, and visitors. And of course, the creation of an integrated digital ecosystem for showcasing Greek tourism based upon the new multilingual and interactive electronic portal. So the issue of data, the big data, the effective data, in order to help the policy makers to take the decision, is one of the main issues that the countries and the UNWTO, EU occupy.
Frano, you want to come in? Yeah.
Thank you very much. I have two very important projects which I want to mention here concerning in terms of digitalization. So we are currently working on a comprehensive system of digitalization of Croatian tourism. We began with the e-visitor system, which is a system of monitoring check-in and check-out of all our guests. So we have, in real time, we have all data connecting with all our tourists and guests, and this e-visitor system was awarded by UNWTO 2 years ago as an excellent product in a digital area. And you have all data about all tourists. So you have number of tourists, of course, from which market are they coming, how old they are, and every data. So this is very important in order to track the visitors and to see in which area they like to go in Croatia, and how we can improve the situation. And the second, I want to mention that the use of new technologies in bringing closer heritage to all tourists and visitors is developing new products. For example, virtual and augmented reality, which is very important. If you want to go special, for example, to Šibenik, you can virtually speak with the architect who erected a very important monument, which is St. James Cathedral in Šibenik, which is under protection of UNESCO. So then you have a Roman time Pula. You can walk through Roman time in Pula. You have an excellent arena from the Roman time. So these new products are very important, and these are not a replacement of the active visiting of this, but just to tickle all the visitors and tourists to come to this place and to really enjoy in the heritage and in our past. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Turning to Cambodia, and I touched on this before, but obviously everyone knows about Angkor Wat, everyone knows about the kind of ancient civilization and the religion there, but what about capacity building in the remote areas? How much work is going on there in involving them in tourism as well?
Thank you again for this question. I think we do a lot of the promote in terms of the capacity buildings to support development of the tourism, especially in the ancient civilization of the Angkor. Because as I informed previously that about 5 million now, the visitor years, and maybe reach to 10 million soon in the near future. So we need a lot of the support, and especially in terms of the human capital to cope with this huge demand of these destinations, the cultural destinations. So we do a lot of the trainings, we provide a lot of trainings, especially the local community, local people in and surround the area to support these destinations. And also we employ all the skilled people. We target this to have a skill and people who have the ability to work, especially the young people, young generations who join support in tourism sector, tourism and both the cultural sectors to support the cultural tourism destination there. I just to clarify a bit about the numbers. You might the question about the number of the carrying overload over the carrying capacity or over number to the destinations. We have a lot of the ways in terms of the to manage the flow of visitors. Although we need to have more visitors, we need to attract more visitors. We target to have more, but then we have management of the flow of visitors in destinations, and we develop surroundings product. It's not only one cultural heritage, but then surroundings product. We support the destination, and we diversify the number of visitors, not only focus on the main destination of the culture, but then we're supporting by ecotourism, community-based tourism, and also development side, supporting to this area. So that's why we still have to receive more number of visitors, but then we can benefit a lot. It's not only the destination, cultural destination, but then surrounding destination as well. It has whole country. Then the government have now the new policy and plannings to build a new city, a smart city, we call it smart city there, a little bit outside of the zone of the cultural heritage to represent the ancient, what we call visitor have opportunity to visit both, to visit the ancient cultural heritage 1,000 or even before the 1,000 years back, and also can see the new technology, the new smart city, or the new way of living is a part of the culture, way of, the civilization and the new civilization, as in our conference talking about the investing in the future generation. So people can visitor can see the old ancient civilization and also the new civilization of the people, of the living of the people in our world. So then this can be to manage the flow of visitor, can have more visitor coming to destination, but people can have many choices to see the different things. This is linked to the culture, very important. But one important is the challenging that we are now facing and need to solve is the harmonization, what we call the harmonization of the between the local community and also the tourists who come to visit us. This is very important. Before we need to promote more income, we need more economic benefit from the visitor coming for the local population, but sometimes we see that the rising of the what so-called the not harmonization, because some people, so local population might not happy with many tourists coming to destination. So this is another challenge for us. So government have the new policy to promote the harmonization between the local community, local people, and also the tourists come to visit destination. So we call new policy, we call using tourism as one other tool to promote to build a better place for people, for our people to live, and in the what so-called the beautiful life. Tourism can bring us to the beautiful lives of people, and also the better place for visitors coming to visit us, and also, and the last very important is harmonization, both of together. So this target have need a lot of human resource, particularly, and using all the technology supported from the all stakeholder to support, and especially like you mentioned about human capital to ensure that this target we will reach.
It's interesting because you talk about harmonization as well. It's almost like the values of harmonizing the values of the local population with the tourist incomer. The tourist has to respect the values of the local population. Yeah, that's, I think, a really important thing. And that is represented really. It's not spoken about enough. And I think it's probably, isn't it a good thing that, in a sense, culture can help people to respect each other's values more? I mean, what I'm getting is that is something that is so important to countries like Cambodia, to countries like Thailand as well, where you need people who are coming in to understand how local people behave, what they respect, what they want. I think that's a very good point.
That's why we just, many speakers here also mentioned about education. Tourism is education, is very important. Let people understand, aware of this culture, respect this education. We promote a lot of education through tourism. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can return to Guinea, and as you say, you're a new player in this game of tourism, but how ready are people in Guinea for more tourists to come in, do you think? Do you think they are sufficiently able to relate and to promote any products that they want to sell?
OK.
Not getting Japanese.
Bien.
As I mentioned before, for tourism, when we started to think was just recent time. In 2011, we entered into the new phase. Regarding this information, in 2010, Conakry is the capital. 500 people only was able to be received in those days. That was the situation of the tourism, but mainly for the business-oriented tourism. Socio-economic development plan was submitted. And currently, we would like to promote tourism. We should take forward steps ahead. For accommodation, we were able to double the capacity for accommodation. And from 3 stars to 5 stars, we have good hotels. And in order to make a continuous movement, we don't have the solid preparation for the infrastructure. In order for hotels to operate fully, demand should come. But as a central government, we are trying to construct roads. Several hundreds of kilometers of the roads construction is our priority. And we would like to receive the international tourists. We are investing into the infrastructure. And for the product plant, we haven't yet arranged. Accommodation is one problem. It's not yet ready for the consumption targets in the future. In 2025, we would like to give satisfaction for the tourists visiting Guinea.
Minister, here in Japan, our hosts, and to Mr. Kado, and to tell me, in terms of what you think is the most effective approach of making sure that visitors and locals get the most of the cultural offering of a country. What do you think is the best approach?
Well, since you have been explaining, Japan is receiving lots of the international tourists just in recent years. We don't have the long history. Therefore, we have the cultural assets in regions. But to what degree can we attract the interest of the international tourists? We are still going trial and error. We are still learning. So into the future, more and more foreign guests are coming as a visitor. Then from Japan, we can make presentation that what we want to communicate. However, we might not be aware of the full potential. Well, Kyoto is a representative, well known to the world, but Osaka, Hiroshima, Fukuoka, we have other major cities. But other than those cities, we have lots of regional towns, villages all over Japan. Somebody said that Japanese people in little village, little festivals have been conveyed over generation of generation, but we haven't noticed that to what degree it can be attractive to the international tourists. That if we can dig out those potential, and then the people, residents in the rural area, can get pride in their activities. So that's what we want to address this tourism issue.
I understand that to have local people to have pride in the fact that they are hosting other people. The Japanese are fantastic at that anyway. I think they're brilliant hosts. Now, I'm aware of time, and I think we've got about, we've got 10 minutes or so left. Are there any questions that people want to ask from the floor? We have people with microphones, I believe. Is there any points that we made from the floor? I know, for example, we have a minister from Oman who might say something. There he is, in fact, over there, yes. Any points or questions? Yes. Can we give a microphone to this gentleman?
Okay. I will speak in Arabic.
Okay.
سوف أتحدث باللغة العربية. Number 5 is in Arabic, the translation. I already
okay.
heard all the audience was in number 5. Okay, so can I ask in Arabic?
You can. I think the translation is into Japanese from the Arabic. Well, that's
I'm a minister from Oman. Rather than as a minister, I'd like to express my comment or I travel around the world and I'm very curious about touching upon the new culture. In many different countries I encounter the tourist industry and the people in the industry will make the attractive sites, but when it comes to the communication and the interaction with the local people, not a sufficient care is given. So I often have some concern about the relationship between the local community and the culture. The Imperial Highness mentioned she is interested in kimono, and wearing the authentic kimono is important. And that is one aspect. And this applies to the many different phenomena. And there are many different professionals. And oftentimes the professionals are interested in not indigenous culture, but something different. The original local culture, the professional should pay more attention to. And by doing so, the local community and tourism and the relationship between the two becomes to be much better. So there are many experiences in Japan, and also there is the new culture created in Japan. Japan and the smaller villages in Japan, they have their own unique culture, I believe. And this is the same in other countries too.
And apologies for the translation not coming up quickly enough. Thank you very much. Anybody want to respond to that point on the panel? I mean, it's a very valid point, but in a sense, it echoes what you've said, so it's fine if not. Any other questions from anybody in the audience? I'm looking out there. Yes, there's people at the back here. Can we take a microphone over there? Gentleman with his hand up. Yep. That way, if you go that way.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Liyahu, an international delegate for Mount of Zion and Jerusalem, Israel, and at the same time from Colombia. An international delegate for these both. We are very interested to let you know the importance to strengthen the local economy for the future, because we need to demonstrate how the intangible and intangible culture heritage we help to strengthen the local economy, because of the future of the humanity. We are looking to demonstrate how the tourists, the culture and education for 21st century, we help to strengthen the local economy. In this moment, the world, they have many changes, the economical, social, and political. And one of the more worry in the world is how we can strengthen this local economy, not expecting just 100% for the internationals. We need to develop the local economies because we don't know what happens in the future with the different situations, natural disaster or social or political or economical. This is that will happen. We are in this moment implement the economy model for demonstrate how we can do it through the Mount of Sion. The Mount of Sion unites 75% of the worldwide population through the intangible and tangible cultural heritage through the King David tomb. We receive many visitors from all over the world. This is that we need to demonstrate how we can do it. And this is that I want to let you know, all the ministers and the people working here, thinking how we can develop the local economy. I strengthen the local economy through this next step, through the intangible and tangible cultural heritage. This is the most important that we need in the future of the humanity. And invite to let you know how we can implement this kind of the proposal that we know that you're talking about. You have many festivals, carnivals, and local. This is that how we can do it. We can share the information, how you can implement this economic model for the cultural, tourist, and education 21st century. You are more than welcome. This is my question for you, how you can develop this kind for the future.
Okay, yes, please, from Greece.
Yes, from Greece, our country's strategic vision is to put in place the necessary management structures and promote networking among local destinations in order to deliver creative, competitive, and sustainable tourism products. Via our implementation tools, via collaboration and networking opportunities among the stakeholders with workshops to foster participation in capacity building programs, with joint actions with other countries, participation to major thematic tourism exhibitions. And I'd like to add that a fundamental frame of reference for responsible and sustainable tourism to which our country firmly adheres is, of course, the Global Code of Ethics for Tourism. So a comprehensive set of principles designed to guide all players in tourism development. And specifically, the Article 4 is particularly referred to culture, viewing tourism as a user of the cultural heritage of mankind and of contribution to this enhancement. So the aspect of this is very crucial because a lot of times we refer about the economic results of the tourism sector, but the political aspects go head to head with this. So before of this, the sustainable tourism refers not only for the tourists, but for the residents. Thank you.
Good point. And sorry, Minister from Croatia. Yes, Frano.
Small intervention. Just, I think it's very important to have local community within the cultural tourism. We have to strengthen their presentation of course, in their traditional way of living and different cultural events. They can participate, of course. But what we want to strengthen in Croatia is local production of food. So I think it's very important. We have action plan of gourmet tourism in Croatia, which are trying to strengthen local production, especially organic production of food, which I think that the local community can benefit from that because they can sell it to all tourists who are coming. And at the same time, we want to create small value chains. We want to connect restaurateurs, so the owners of the restaurants and the hoteliers with local production, and we want to have a very clear, transparent way of selling these products to tourists and also to Croatian citizens. So we want to strengthen agricultural production, which can be part of tourism also, which is a very important part of tourism, because I know that in Croatia, for example, tourists are coming also because of gastronomy. So wine production and food production is very important part of gastronomy, like here in Japan, sashimi and everything fine, what we can taste here. It is very important for our feeling of what really tourism is in all our countries.
I think that's right. In terms of the local economy, gastronomy, as you say, artisanship, local crafts, these things are only things that local economies can create. And that's one way of ensuring that they have a stake in tourism. I think that's good. There's a gentleman who wants to, yes, his arm is raised. Can you put your hand right up? Thank you. Can we get a microphone to this gentleman here, please?
Thank you, and greetings from the Pacific. My name is Annie Dambis. I'm from Papua New Guinea. And again, thank you to UNESCO and UNWT for organizing this. It is very interesting to note from Croatia, on one of the discussions here, I see that the population is about 4 million and an annual arrival of 20 million, which equates to 4 tourists to 1 person in Croatia. So my question here is that having an impact on the carrying capacity? And is it also having an impact on the culture of Croatia? If so, how is Croatia going about in addressing this? Thank you.
Yes, so Minister from Croatia, is there a problem almost in terms of the number of tourists?
In some destinations, yes, definitely we had, and in some destinations still we have some problems with over-tourism. For example, we have a national park, Plitvice Lakes, which is very close to capital city of Zagreb. And we have more than 2 million visitors in this national park. And we also have national action plan in protecting this very, very important site. It is also protected by UNESCO. And many tourists, especially from Far East, from Japan, Korea, China, and the other countries, are coming to visit these natural beauties. And it's always a question of managing. How can you manage tourist flow? So timetable is very important for us. Infrastructure is developed enough, but still you cannot receive more than people than it is possible. So anyway, if you have very good and programming timetable, then you don't have so much problems. And I think our intention is to spread tourist flow all over the year. So that's the main target, but still, main season is summer season, of course, summer holidays because of the vicinity of the amity markets. So on the first place in Croatia, we have tourists from Germany, for example, and then from Slovenia, Austria, Hungary, Italy. These neighboring countries are the most important amity countries, but at the same time we have growing interest from the far countries like United States, growing very fast in Croatia, and China, Korea, Japan, these countries are growing very good and more than 10% per year. So it is a question of impact on environment also. So that's something we are investing a lot together with the help by EU funding. We are investing a lot in infrastructure, in sewage system, and everything what's needed to protect our natural resources. But I want to raise one question, which is very important, but although we are at the end of this part of meeting, but for me it's very important to establish effective tool in protecting cultural heritage around the world. I told you at the beginning that the city of Dubrovnik, which is a pearl, which is World Heritage, was heavily damaged in the war in the 90s. But we had a situation in Iraq. You remember Palmyra and the other UNESCO protected sites.
Yeah.
So we have to establish more effective tools in a way to protect this cultural heritage from such damaging. So I don't know what's the formula, what's the receipt, but I think that we have to think together, UNESCO and UNWTO, how can we protect this cultural heritage, because this is a legacy of the whole world. So not to endanger this heritage and how to improve, in fact, condition in protected sites. So I think this is a very important question for all of us. Thank you very much.
It's a very big question, isn't it? And almost outside the ambit of this discussion, because it's almost talking about convention during wartime, for example, and you know, what you're allowed to you know, yes, please.
Just to mention, when Dubrovnik was bombed, the city government of Dubrovnik in the beginning of 1990s, they set up signs of UNESCO on the roofs of the city of Dubrovnik. But it was helpless. It was helpless. UNESCO was helpless, and you know, that unfortunately the city was completely damaged. Fortunately, we had architectural blueprints, so we restored everything in a way that this was erected some centuries ago. Yeah? So it is important you know, to be aware that we have to protect this cultural heritage, no matter what's happening around.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And that's a kind of sobering note, but a very important note to end this discussion with. There is so much more that we could discuss. I'm sure there are lots more questions that you want to ask. I know that the panel are going to be around for lunch. We're going to have break for lunch now. You've done very well, because we've gone through a whole morning without a coffee break. Well done, everybody. Thank you very much indeed to my panel of ministers and high-level representatives. As I say, they will be here to talk to you, and this discussion will go on for a very long time, but it's very, very important, making sure that tourism protects culture, protects local communities, whilst also obviously increasing the economic benefits. Thank you, and I'll hand you back to our MC.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, ministers. Thank you, high representatives. That was a segment on implementing innovative policy and governance models in the cultural tourism. Once again, would you please give all the guests a big hand? Thank you very much again for sharing your thoughts, your policies as well.